Hello, viewers. Happy post-holidays, at least happy post-Christmas holidays. New Year's is still to come. I really didn't think I was going to have an opportunity to do another update before the new year, but as it turns out, the weather is relatively mild here. If you consider mid to upper 40s mild. For wintertime, I think it's pretty mild. I feel comfortable anyway, even in bare feet. Beats the 12 degrees that it was in Denver and Colorado Springs yesterday when I flew home. It was very cold out there. So I got some goodies while I was gone, some of it for Christmas, some of it I had ordered before I left, and even found a couple things at my ex-wife's home that I didn't know were there. So I thought I'd share with that, and I'll tell you what I plan on doing today with about 2 or 3 hours of daylight left. So stacked on my car are some of the goodies I have. This is the specialized tool that I bought that is supposed to help me install these pesky grommets here, these bushings. One, the bigger one at the end of the steering column shift lever, and the smaller one on the side of the transmission shift lever directly. So if this tool works as advertised, um, they should go on relatively easy. The only thing I will add is some Vaseline as usual to try and help them slide into their respective openings. So pretty excited to get that done. This beauty here, this sling adjustment, a leveler, I guess it's a load lever for engines, would have come in real handy when I did my engine swap. I mean, I did get one, but I borrowed it from a mechanic there. I forgot I had one. It was in a tool chest in Colorado at my ex-wife's house, so I just put that in my checked bag. It fit just fine and brought that home, so I was excited about that. I also found some other items there too, like a bunch of new hoses and various shapes and sizes, vacuum hoses and whatnot, and some other loose parts that I put in a box and shipped to myself. And it occurred to me today that I probably could have just used that as a second checked bag. That would have saved me about $57 in shipping charges, but didn't think about it at the time. That was on Southwest Airlines, where you get 2 free checked bags. Pretty good deal. Something that I had already received before I left were the sway bar bushings kits, the links, and the bushings and everything. And I normally stick to original colors and whatnot, but sometimes I have weak moments, so I got ones that had pretty blue bushings. The strut rod bushings are supposed to show up today, and they have red bushings, so that's about as wild as I like to get on these projects. One of my Christmas presents was this new air breather element for the oil fill tube that came from my oldest son, along with this PCV valve, brand new, and a nice brand new air filter made by Bosch. So something that I found at my ex's house. Brand new set of brake pads that I've had for years and years. I just forgot they were there. You can see that I probably bought them on eBay years ago. So they're still brand new and good. So I've already got brake pads for when I do the brakes someday. Something I'd ordered from Mark II Enterprises. A beautiful set of custom made 12-volt cables. There's 3 of them there for the battery. The negative one, you can see how beefy that is. I'm sorry, that's positive. Red is positive. I should know that. And then there's a couple of negative ones here. The one that's custom made with that extra little spot that bolts to the frame. Here it is right here. You probably can't see it too well through the plastic, but I don't want to open this until I'm ready to install. And then there's also the lead that goes to the starter motor. So not cheap, but original equipment design and very heavy duty cables. So I'm looking forward to putting those on. I've got more parts coming. But that's what I have right now. And my goal today, to start with, is to install these bushings. So we'll see how we do with that. A couple of other things I thought about too, I want to mention. I was one of the things I did while I was in the air flying was type up a to-do list of things I put in, security, or I'm sorry, priority items first, and then secondary, and then longer term, just for the fun of it. And it's kind of in order. Sometimes I just like to, do whatever comes to mind and do that next, even though it may not make sense to do that next. But so I've kind of got things in order here of the way I'd like to do them. We'll see how close I actually stick to that. One of the things that's not on my list at all is to install this. So for my son Matt, I'm going to go ahead and replace this, since this is quick and easy, and this old one is all rusty and filthy and clogged up and everything. So here you go. Now my oldest son is invested in my project. Thank you very much. So there we go. Got a new part on there just for him. Something else I haven't looked at since I put this oil pan underneath the car. Hopefully it didn't get wet, but I'm looking to see if any oil dripped in it. And from what I can see, it looks dry, which is a good sign. That means the oil drain plug is holding. So at some point soon, I can continue and finish filling up the crank. One of the things I'm planning on doing fairly soon, once I get the new battery cables installed and buy a battery, I need to do that too. Then I'm going to take out the spark plugs and spin the engine, let it kind of help prime the oil pump, and just listen and make sure I don't hear any strange sounds. I shouldn't hear anything weird at all, but just something I'm planning on doing. It's on my to-do list. So now I'm going to get set. Oh, the ground, even though there's not standing water, is still saturated. I can feel it under my feet, but so it's pretty muddy. So that's why I've got the plywood under there, and I'm gonna probably do the top one first, or attempt to do the top one first on the fifth linkage with those bushings. So we'll see how that part goes. All right, I'm set here to attempt to install this bushing at the end of the steering column. Here's yet another new bushing. Here's my nifty new tool. As I understand it, the idea is that the bushing fits on the end here, and then somehow I get around where it's got to go and just basically just squeeze it in place like that. So we'll see how this works. Something else I noticed when I was wiping off the fender here, because it was kind of wet, green paint on my rag. It's like, wow, what they paint this color with? I mean, paint this car with watercolor. So it's actually pretty easy to get to like this. So I'm just going to get down in there and see what happens. Pushing this in there. Hopefully this will work well. I think I'm gonna have to get a light though. It's a little bit dark down in that area. I'll show you a close up here as I'm getting closer to work. Okay, you can kind of see the area that I'm working with here. I cleared the power steering hose out of the way a little bit. That was on top of the steering gear. Pulled the speedometer cable out of the firewall there because it was kind of in the way, just to give myself a little more room to work with here. So now we'll see what happens. All right, I've got the tool in place. I know it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing here, but it's kind of down there, so I'm going to squeeze. I'm going to need. Well, I failed yet again, and it looks like I damaged yet another bushing. As hard as I tried to squeeze it in there, maybe this bushing is just not the right size. It just will not go in. It just kind of damages the bushing. So now I'm going to attempt to do the one at the other end on the transmission. Maybe that one's the right size. I don't know if I need to go to a Ford or Lincoln Mercury parts department, see if they can get me the proper bushing, or if I just don't know what I'm doing. Of course, this whole thing would have been so much easier if I had done this when the steering column was still out of the car, but nevertheless, I had enough room. I should have been able to squeeze that in place, and all it did was mangle the bushing again. It might still be salvageable, but it doesn't look good. So I'm going to try with the other bushing on the bottom underneath the car. I just noticed that I actually still have the last bushing on the linkage itself. It's still actually on the rod, and it does not look like it's all that damaged. So what I may do with this tool is see if I can get it to maybe press this one in place with the rod through the bushing. I think I've done that before many years ago, and I think I saw someone else online do it too. So we'll give this a shot before I give up on top. All right, I've come to the conclusion so far that the two bushings I bought, one of them was the wrong size. The one that I've been trying to get on is this one, and it's just too big for the holes, what it comes down to. This other one, which I thought was going to go down on the transmission on the smaller hole, is too big for that hole. But it appears that it'll slide in relatively easy down here at the end of the steering column. So I think what happened is I just got the wrong size bushings. So I'm going to try to put this smaller one in on the end of the steering column, and then I'm just going to go to the hardware store or the auto parts store, see if they got some small bushings that maybe I can use on the transmission, probably similar in size to these right there. So I don't know if I'm going to need the tool or not, or use it, but I think I will. I mean, that's what I bought it for. I tell you, I keep learning expensive lessons. Hopefully you'll benefit from my mistakes. This tool turned out to be useless. I paid a good amount of money for it too. It advertises as all Mercedes-Benz and many Ford and Chevrolet. Well, it didn't work on this car. That nub on the end there was too big for the bushing I was trying to push into place. I was actually able to just push it into place almost by hand. I just used a regular pair of pliers to carefully squeeze it in and finish pushing it in with my fingers. That was the smaller of the two bushings that I have. I still have to go to the store down there at the bottom. You can see it right there in the center of your screen. I'll zoom in a little bit here. That I got to get a smaller bushing for that on the transmission, so I'll do that sometime. I don't know if today or another day, but anyway. So the good news is the upper bushing wasn't that hard to install after all. I just didn't have the right size bushing all this time that I was trying to force into there. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rod in there and secure it with the cotter key, cotter pin, and then I'll leave the other end hanging down until I get a smaller bushing for the shift lever on the transmission. I'm just illustrating that I had to use these same pliers to squeeze the rod through the bushing, and now it's in place. So now I just have to put this little cotter key right there at the end. There's a little hole at the end of the rod, and that'll secure the top part finally. All right, another look at the shift linkage here. There's a spring that goes inside this shaft right here at the end of my hand that goes on the ends here, and there's another one over here. That's a new bushing. What I don't like about that new bushing is it fits very loosely. It doesn't snap in place. I don't like that, but that's the way it came from Mark II Enterprises, and I only had to replace it because the old one broke. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered buying those, but I thought they were going to fit tighter like the original ones did, so I'm a little leery about that. But as long as I can fit the shaft over it, then I'll be fine. So all I got to do is put the spring inside that shaft and then just kind of push it on there. The spring tends to hold it in place. And I'm pretty sure there's another place to put a cotter key, and I think there's probably a hole near that new bushing on the shaft part where there's a hole. I'm pretty sure I'll have to find it where I can put a cotter key to keep it in place. Not that it's ever going to come loose, but Ford in their design was being very secure. All right, so now the shaft is in place on the bushings, and the bushing did hold. You can see how the spring works. It's inside that shaft now. I get my arm down there. If I push against it, you can see it moving. The spring is keeping it pressed against the transmission, so it stays good and tight. So eventually I'll find that hole that I was talking about earlier and put a cotter key down there. I think I can see the hole right now. So just one more step in the process. All right, I've got the cotter key in place. You can see, I think it's at the top of your screen, the way this is oriented. Just going to sit in the car real quick. Hope the phone doesn't fall while I move the shifter. I just want to record how it operates. All right, now I'll have to review that and see what it looks like. All right, so until I get back to the store to try and get some small parts, I'm going to work on this sway bar link right now. Since the old links are still on the sway bar, I surmise that I can simply put the new ones on as they sit here on the ground. That'll be a little easier, I think, than trying to do it while it's under the car. And then the other end I'll secure to the car after I've got them installed there. And I also need a couple of O-rings here. This is the dipstick tube. I want to replace that O-ring, and then this is the speedometer cable that goes inside this transmission. So I want to put a new O-ring there as well. So I'm going to take those with me to the store to replace those, try to get another bushing, and also another can of Ford paint. So I'm going to work on the sway bar for a while now. Okay, right now I'm in the process of putting on the new links on the sway bar. It's going pretty easily. Had to use a hammer to break the old shafts, old pieces out and whatnot, but that wasn't too bad. So now I'm just assembling the new pieces here, which starts with this rod here, like so, and then just fits under here. Of course, I'm maintaining the same orientation that I had when I took it off, so I can get it back in the right way without having it on the car. So pretty easy to do. This little shaft is important. And then let's see here, another washer on top there, another bushing. And then here's where the part on the car is going to go. But for now, just to hold everything together in the right order, I'm just putting it all like this temporarily. And with that, this sway bar is actually ready to go back in the car. Much easier to do while it's not on the car like this. All right, well, as often can be the case, putting things back together is sometimes a lot harder than taking them apart. This sway bar is a great example. What a pain in the butt that was. But I'm finally done. You can see my new bushings over there attached to the control arm. The hardest part was getting these stupid bushings here back in place because you're fighting the tension of that bar. You can't get the holes lined up for the bolts. But I finally managed with crowbars and trying not to cross thread things and whatnot. But everything is in place now on both sides. So it's getting dark outside, so I have to wrap things up. I did want to show a couple things underneath here too, which I'm not at all happy about. There are two leaks on the power steering pump, and it hasn't even run yet. This is just from having some type of transmission fluid in the reservoir. Two leaks, one here at that darn joint that came apart when I was trying to put this all together, so my little seal didn't work. So my next step is going to be to take that out, and I'm going to JB weld that SOB, and I'm just going to pack it in there good to make sure it can't leak. And then there's a leak right here, which this one I'm kind of surprised about. I thought that clamp was good and tight, but obviously not. So I'm just going to remove that old style clamp and replace it with a more modern hose clamp. So that one won't be too bad, but that one annoys me considering this is a rebuilt pump. But anyway, and there is a very slight leak here at the oil pan that's so slight. I don't even see any drips on the after a week of it sitting here, so I'm not worried about that. So I have to wrap it up for the day. So thank you for watching.